Hey, welcome back, guys. Today I thought I'd pop in with a video. I haven't been on for a while. I apologize for that, but I've had a lot of things going on. Health-wise, I'm doing very well. My last checkup was a good one. And so, hey, one day at a time. So, I've been playing with Linux, and I had a reason that I needed to use Windows recently. And it was actually to file my taxes because the TurboTax software does not function on Linux. At least I haven't really tried Wine or anything like that to try to get it going. So I took the easy way out, and I had my Windows 10 loaded on a separate drive. And so what I did was I did what I had to do. I filed my taxes, and I ran that Windows petition for probably 3 or 4 weeks. And during that time, it just basically convinced me and highlighted all the reasons why I have switched over to Linux. So as you can see, this is my Windows 10 SSD, which is no longer in the computer. And I removed it. It's there if I need it, but I've got 3 SSDs in this machine, and I find that the more SSDs you have in your computer that actually have bootable petitions, the more it can cause some confusion with grub. So I decided to take out Windows 10. The other thing I've been doing, well, let me tell you one other thing. I installed a new video card. So I needed to replace my NVIDIA card. And one of the reasons that I replaced my NVIDIA card is because I've been fooling around with, again, which I have done in the past, I've been trying some of the new ways to get Apple Mac OS software running on a conventional personal computer. And so this time around, Mac has released a new software, Mojave. It's new to me. It's been out for a little while. So Mojave, for because of some disagreements between Apple and NVIDIA, Mojave will not accept any drivers for an NVIDIA graphics card. So I had been wanting to replace my NVIDIA card for a while for various reasons, some of which were directly related to Linux. But I decided to go ahead and buy an AMD card. Now, AMD, many of their cards are recognized natively by Mac OS. So as soon as you put it in the machine and you boot up Mac OS, it recognizes it. And I wanted to take advantage of that, and I also wanted to do a little digging to see if that really worked. So I bought the AMD Sapphire Pulse RX 580 graphics card. It's not the latest and the greatest, but it is one of the cards that is on Apple's list as being accepted and configured out of the box. So I went ahead and I installed Mac OS Mojave on this computer. And it worked out of the box. Everything works fine. If you looked at it, you wouldn't even realize you were not running an actual Apple computer. So that was a success. That worked fine. During that process, I had to, because I spend most of my time in Linux, I had to eliminate screen tearing within Linux. And so I had 5 different distributions loaded on my SSD. And so basically I went through a process where I checked each of those distributions, and I determined which ones enabled and configured the AMD graphics card right out of the box. And I wanted to see if it identified it properly, and I wanted to see if I had any screen tearing. So what happened was I installed Linux Mint out of the box. And I used Linux Mint as an Ubuntu-based distribution for reference. I also installed Ubuntu Mate. I installed, and Linux Mint was the XFCE version. I then went ahead and installed their Mate version, which is what you see running here. Although I messed with it a little bit. I changed back to the old menu because I don't like their brisk menu at all. So I went back to this conventional Mate menu. So Linux Mint, Ubuntu Mate, Linux Mate, MX18 for a Debian perspective, Sparky Linux for a Debian perspective with LXDE. And for my Arch representative, I used Archman. Now, I'll tell you what happened there. With my graphics card, Linux Mint was the only distribution, and that was the XFCE version. For some reason, it configured the card, and I had no screen tearing at all. But all of the others, I had screen tearing, and I had to run I had to modify my config file to eliminate screen tearing, and I was successful on all the others. So for Sparky MX18 Debian, I was able to do the same configuration. Mate, Linux Mint, I was able to do the same configuration. Now, if you guys would like to, I'll review that configuration fix with you if you're interested. I'm not sure how many of you guys run AMD and whether or not you're actually having screen tearing issues. But if you're having issues, I'd be happy to make a video showing you how I eliminated screen tearing. So let's use this particular installation as an example. As I said, this is the Linux Mint Mate version. Everything runs perfectly as Linux Mint always does. I haven't had any issues whatsoever with all of the Ubuntu based and the Debian based. So let's say everything but Arch has been running flawlessly. Arch Linux, my Archman installation, I had some Pac-Man issues on updates, and so I ended up removing that install. As I said, I did get my screen tearing taken care of on the AMD card. Now Manjaro, I loaded a couple of installations. I tried the Manjaro flagship XFCE, and I also installed the Mate version. And for some reason, both of them had issues with my Mac install. So I've got a separate hard drive, a separate SSD that holds Mac Mojave. And my Manjaro, for some reason, my Manjaro installs created conflicts, and it actually contaminated my my Mac Mojave install. And so I removed the Manjaro because I've been spending some time playing with the Mojave. I didn't want to mess that up. And also the other consideration is that when you're installing the software for Mac, it's a long, tedious project, and so I didn't want to risk having to go through that long, tedious process again. So just to be on the safe side, I removed all Arch installations from my computer, and basically what I have now is Ubuntu-based distros and Debian-based distros. And as I said, they're all running fine. Now, on this particular Linux Mint Mate, everything that I've tried has worked fine. A GUVC View, simple screen recorder. I've got a VPN running. No issues whatsoever. And so I'm going to use this as my daily driver for the near future, but all the while I'm still keeping my other installs because I do like to pop between them. Also, I still like the LXDE desktop. I don't like the QT or the LXQT. I don't like it at all, and so I won't use it. But I do like LXDE. I am using Sparky with LXDE. For an Ubuntu-based distribution, my preference is Ubuntu LXDE, which is Lubuntu 1804. That's the last release that has the LXDE desktop. From 1810 on, it's now LXQT, which I am not a big fan of. So beyond LXDE, if I were to pick a desktop, I think I would go with XFCE or Mate, one or the other. I like them both. So I've been doing some reading, and I've got some links to some website information. I was intrigued lately because I saw an interview with Linus, and he was talking about the Linux desktop. And the interviewer asked him, what do you think is holding Linux back from taking on a bigger market share, bigger user base versus Windows and Mac? And his answer was exactly what I expected him to say. And I agree with it 100%. If Linux wants to make inroads and capture more users, Linux needs a standardized desktop. Right now, there are so many variations, distros, desktop environments. There are so many variations that a new user is confused. Unless they have somebody with them holding their hand, there's just no way they're gonna muddle through and pick a distro. It's difficult to even make a choice. And so until, and I agree with Linus, until Linux makes at least some movement towards a standardized desktop, Linux is going to be exactly what it is. It's a hobby. It's a hobbyist desktop. It's a hobbyist operating system. We're passionate about it, and we use it on a daily basis. But it's because that's what we know, and we took the initiative to learn as much as we can about it. And we've learned how to deal with the discrepancies between desktops and distributions. The average computer user is not willing to do that. And so now I think Linux has even more problems because package management is becoming so convoluted and confusing that the average Linux user is faced with snaps you've got snaps, you've got app image, Flatpak. Then you've got the standardized apt installation that Debian uses and Ubuntu uses, but now you're throwing all these other ways of installing applications, Snap, App Image, Flatpak, and I'm sure there'll be more. There's no standardization. It's too fragmented. And so hopefully Linux will settle on one common application distribution system. But until then, I think there are going to be issues. Now, I've got the websites here, and I'm going to put links to these sites. If you guys are interested in reading up, this one here is on ZDNet. The Linux desktop is in trouble, and it goes on to mention the interview with Linus. Linux doesn't have a standardized desktop. There's lots of information. If you guys are interested, I'll post these links. The most popular Linux desktop programs, what the Linux desktop must have to become mainstream, a nice article on Linux Mint and how the steps they're taking and some of the frustrations they're dealing with in order to provide a desktop that people can use and learn, gravitate to, and be successful with. I've got a special discussion here on the future of app distribution in Linux. App Image, Snappy, and Flatpak. So this highlights a lot of the frustrations that you face when you're trying to install an application. And you have to look at it not from our perspective, because we live with it every day and we've come to know these methods of application installation, so we deal with it, no problem. It's a learning curve for us. But for somebody who hasn't been acclimated to Linux, they start reading this and that's it. They're just going to black out. I mean, they're not going to want to get involved in it. It's just too much for them to understand. They want something that they can sit down to, use, like, be successful with, and understand. And Linux is becoming more and more difficult to understand the entire scope of the distributions, the desktop environments, and application installation. And then in Reddit, there are lots of comments and information on Snaps, Flatpak, App Image from a software deployment perspective. So I wanted to go through a couple things concerning my AMD card and what's been happening lately, and I hope you guys continue to watch the videos. I am going to try to put out videos more often, shorter, probably confined to one topic. And as I said, if you guys want information on how I resolved the screen tearing with my AMD card, I'd be happy to do that video. Just let me know in the comments. So guys, that is it for this video. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much for your support over the last year or so. It's been difficult at times, but right now I'm doing fine. So guys, thanks very much for stopping by the channel today. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Take care.